Every year, the hottest topic ahead of any NFL draft is always the quarterbacks. But often, and especially in 2022, the best player in the draft is often not a quarterback. And this year, it's likely defensive end Aidan Hutchinson. The Michigan product has all of the hype in the world behind him, and for good reason. But what makes him so special? Aidan Hutchinson was born in Plymouth, Michigan, and attended Divine Child High School, where he played defensive end, tight end, offensive line, and long snapper. He was considered a four-star recruit, the sixth best strong side defensive end in the country, and the best recruit in the state before committing to Michigan, following in his family's footsteps. His dad, Chris, was the 1992 Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year and a first-team All-American at Michigan. Aidan ended up wearing his dad's old number, 97, for the Wolverines. As a true freshman, Aidan Hutchinson played in every game and recorded 15 tackles. The following year, he took over as a starter and was named third-team All-Big Ten after making 68 tackles and 4.5 sacks. In 2020, Hutchinson played in just 3 games before tragedy struck. He went down with a fracture in his leg and had to undergo surgery. It was a long recovery, but by the time the 2021 season came around, he was ready to go. And 2021 was one hell of a year for Aidan Hutchinson. He set a school record with 14 sacks and won a slew of awards, including the Ted Hendricks Award given to the best defensive end in the country, and he was named a unanimous All-American. Additionally, Hutchinson was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy, the lone non-quarterback of the 4 finalists. Aidan Hutchinson is the ideal low-risk prospect with a high floor and low bust potential. There's a lot to love about his game. He's a great size at around 6'6.5" and 260 pounds. He's super strong and can be explosive off the line, and he has good speed and technique to make up for any of his other shortcomings. Hutchinson is a power rusher that has the ability to get off blocks and make the right decisions to make plays in the run game as well. He can clearly recognize a run versus a pass, and he rarely gets caught guessing. The biggest downfalls? Well, Hutchinson isn't very flexible, and sometimes he can't keep up in the open field. He'll be left chasing from behind if he is matched up against another elite athlete. The big question with Aidan Hutchinson coming into 2021 was durability. It was definitely a fair worry. That was probably the top thing on scouts' mind watching him earlier in the season, but I think it's safe to say that he's responded in a big way. It was an anomaly of an injury for him, and he didn't just return to full health, he got even better. There is one big fault with Aidan Hutchinson, but it comes down to his measurements, not his play on the field. Hutchinson has 32 1/8 inch arms, below the normally accepted 33-inch arm length. Kenny Pickett made headlines for his smaller than average hands, and Aidan Hutchinson lands in the same predicament with his arms. Arm length can matter even more than a quarterback's hand size. It comes with deflecting passes or trying to create separation against defenders. It also raises some questions about how it could affect him in the pros, and at times, it does show up on the film. When I watch Aidan Hutchinson play, I can't help but see some similarities between him and Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa. And yeah, maybe some of that does have to do with the number 97 and the Michigan-Ohio State connection, but there are still so many things in his game that do kind of mirror the Bosas. Like the Bosas, if Hutchinson wants to bull rush, he can, but he usually won't. Normally, Hutchinson makes his way to the lineman before trying to quickly hand fight to catch the protector lacking and get through the line. Don't get me wrong, he has a good bull rush that can help him get inside, but that's far from the most important part of his game. Hutchinson is fast with his hands and focuses on finesse and quickness with his elite hand technique to get past linemen. Aidan Hutchinson is the number 1 guy on almost every analyst's big board. It's honestly hard to envision a draft where Hutchinson doesn't go in the top 2. The Jaguars have the number 1 pick and already have their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. There is a potential to pivot and go with an offensive tackle, and if they do, the Lions will surely take the hometown kid at 2. Ultimately, Aidan Hutchinson is one of those guys that I'm not really worried about going in and picking if I'm a team. He has a really, really high floor. I don't really see potential for him to bust out. He's at least going to turn into something. Even if I think the worst case scenario is him just turning into like a Jadeveon Clowney type guy that maybe isn't as big of a playmaker as you would have hoped. He didn't turn into, what Myles Garrett maybe turned out to be when he was selected first overall. But I think Aidan Hutchinson, that's kind of his floor, and he has the potential to turn into one of those perennial superstars like one of the Joey Bosa or Nick Bosas of the world. I haven't seen much of the durability factor come up, and I definitely think that's a good thing. It shouldn't really matter much. The fractured leg or fractured ankle issue was all, over a year ago now, and he obviously came back, was able to prove a lot of people wrong, and it was an anomaly. It's only happened once. I know people are going to be worried about durability, or people are going to bring up the fact that, he's injury prone, but that's not really true. It's been one time. He hasn't dealt with anything else. It was a single freak injury, and he's moved on, and he's gotten even better from it, so it really shouldn't matter now. That being said, the arm length could end up mattering. I talked a little about Kenny Pickett, and my big thing with Kenny Pickett is that I didn't think it mattered because it didn't show up on film. But there are times where the arm length shows up on film with Aidan Hutchinson, and that's because where Kenny Pickett, the worry with hand size is just simply him grasping the football and protection, and you don't really see much of that. The issue with arm length is a lot more than that. Can he get up to bat a ball? He needs more space and separation against a lineman. So I think it's actually much more of an important measurement than the hand size, and it's something that I could see affecting him in the NFL, but not something that I think is a big enough deal, because again, that's not necessarily the biggest part. He's good at hand fighting, and that does matter with arm length, but a lot of his is being super fast, kind of finesse, and being able to get past defenders really quick and making the right moves, because his technique is fantastic, and I think ultimately he has the best technique in the draft for any defensive end, and I think that's the really big thing that's going to will Aidan Hutchinson to be a productive pro. In terms of best fit, I definitely do think it's the Lions. I think the Lions at 2 would just be really cool. I mean, I'm talking about Aidan Hutchinson, who was born in Michigan, decided to stay home and go to the University of Michigan. If he landed in Detroit, Michigan, at number 2, second overall pick in the draft, that would be crazy. And I mean, it'd be an awesome, I'm sure, dream come true for Aidan. I don't actually know if he's a Lions fan or not, but for him to stay near his family where he was, near Michigan, I think that would easily be the perfect fit. I think he's really going to be able to thrive almost anywhere he goes. I think, his development is important, but not necessarily to the same degree of like a quarterback, where he'll probably figure out his way just because of how much of a freak athlete he is. The worst fit, again, I don't see him going past number 2, but I guess worst fit would be number 3 at the Texans, and there's really not much substance to that. It's just that Houston's a complete disaster right now, and I think Aidan Hutchinson would probably have less eyes on him if he went to Houston, and I think instead if he ends up in Jacksonville or Detroit, which I think he'll obviously end up in one of those two, I think that there's going to be a lot more eyes around him, a lot more hype around him. The Lions can kind of rally behind the hometown kid, plus they really need something to kind of be happy about just because of how bad everything is. You get rid of Matthew Stafford, he goes on, wins a Super Bowl, so I think that'd be a huge get for the Lions. And for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think is the most likely fit, it makes sense. You took Trevor Lawrence first overall last year, and now this year you're able to get the best player in the draft. I think there's a lot of things to be excited about there, and I think that's easily the most likely. As of right now, I don't see a scenario where Hutchinson doesn't go past 2, and I'm really, really confident he goes 1, probably 90%. I don't know, what the Jaguars are thinking. If he doesn't go, it's going to be a guy like Evan Neal at first, because the Jaguars want to prioritize an offensive tackle. But for the most part, I think Aidan Hutchinson is probably locked in as the number 1 pick to the Jaguars. Being the number 1 pick comes with a lot of expectations and hype, and I think a lot of that is actually going to be masked in Jacksonville because Trevor Lawrence is already there and more eyes are going to be on him. But at the end of the day, if you're the Jaguars, you're able to get Trevor Lawrence, and then you're able to get Aidan Hutchinson in back-to-back drafts. That's a huge get, and you're looking at 2 potential NFL superstars.